What is up, YouTubes? Mountain Man Magic, and we went to Denver to play in the Team Limited main event at GP Denver. It was a really great time to finally get to experience a GP, to play in some side events, just to meet a lot of cool people, play a ton of Magic, check out the city of Denver. All in all, it was a great weekend. I'm going to tell you all about it. Let's get into it. Now, our initial plan was to get in on Thursday, meet up with a friend, play some Magic, check out the city all day Friday, and then play a lot of Magic over the weekend, flying back late on Sunday. Now, I say planned because Thursday, we get to the airport after work, we're hanging out, it's late, our plane keeps getting delayed, and then we find out flight is canceled, so didn't get off to the best start. But we did get a bonus date out of it because we ended up just getting a comped hotel room. They gave us some meal vouchers, so we got to get a free dinner out of it. So in a way, it was actually a highlight of the trip, and we hadn't even left yet. That's life. You just roll with it. It was a great time. Friday morning comes, we get into Denver finally, and what's really cool is as we're leaving to procure some public transportation, taking the train from the airport into the city, they had free nachos and lemonade and guac and rum chata. It was definitely the best thing I've ever had leaving an airport immediately, was free food and drink and just welcome to the city. Like, that's pretty cool. 2 thumbs up for Denver right away. We spend the day chilling on 16th Avenue, which is this walking mall street. The only thing that's really allowed to drive on it are the police and this free bus that you can hop on, and it takes you up and down the strip. It was pretty awesome. We went to an arcade, we did some bowling. I did not very good. I am not a good bowler. I did have one clutch moment though. I needed to get all 10 pins for the win, and you know we pulled it off. Doesn't matter, was a great time. Moving on. Saturday morning comes and we're all pretty nervous for the main event. Not because we have these expectations, but because we don't know what to expect. The one main factor I should point out, our teammate Tyler, he was driving down. So he had like an 8+ hour drive. He worked all day Friday, got in his car and just immediately started driving south towards Denver. He drove as long as he possibly could, got into a rest stop, passed out in his car, woke up, kept driving, picked us up from our Airbnb, and then we just kept driving straight to the main event. To say we were all in tip-top shape is probably not accurate. Oh, I did stop to grab some donuts for the judges because they're just good people and I wanted to give them a little snack. So, hey, hope y'all enjoyed the donuts. At the hotel, there's a lot of cool signs directing us where to go. We walked down seemingly an endless hallway with just a lot of people crammed in, moving towards this very open, huge space where all of us were going to be crammed in, playing in the main event, playing all the side events. And I gotta say, right away, you can feel like if I was a judge in that situation, I would have been a little nervous at how many people there were, the tight space you had to work in, just how loud it was in there. So this is just shout out number 1 to the judges for doing a great job at the event. And like I said, we had 0 expectations, but the main event did not go amazing. Now, the first lesson I learned, the first lesson that we all learned, was probably to know how a team limited event works. We did not know that you got the equivalent of, I think it was, 12 packs to make 3 decks, so it was a little bit smaller of a card pool than I was expecting, and you get a full hour for the time. I wish I would have had time to film some of it, but we were kind of panicking to make sure that we were checking off the list correctly, getting the cards checked, trying to figure out what everyone wanted to play, trying to figure out what our card pool would allow us to play. So building 3 decks, figuring all that out in an hour was pretty hectic. And granted, we all got along really well, even though we've never really played Magic together before. Me and the fiance have a handful of pre-releases under our belt, and our teammate Tyler had a pre-release under his belt, so we went in as ready as could be. Anyway, we ended up with Tyler, our rogue counterpart, playing Boros. I was on Demir in the middle seat, and then the fiance was playing Selesnya. I messed up a little bit. I accidentally didn't put any of the Izzet cards on any of the sheets, so no one could sideboard them in, so there was basically 10 cards that were unplayable. There was nothing noteworthy in it, so it wasn't really a big loss. That was just a rookie mistake for sure. And this led us to our second lesson learned, which is maybe do some preparation for the GP, like any preparation for the GP. Now, if you're a veteran player, you could totally show up, play with some strangers who are also veteran players, and you guys will do awesome. No ifs, ands, or buts. I think you can definitely sign up and just go for it. But for us, because it was at that next level and we were like down, down there, that we were pretty out of our element when it came to, let's just say we didn't give ourselves the best chance to do the best that we could. We went into it more for the experience right away and just to kind of enjoy the atmosphere of it and see what it was like. And in that regard, it was great. And I got to give another shout out to the judges who were super helpful, helped us with all of our questions, and just were very approachable, nice, funny, calm, just like in a sea of hectic Magic players. Everyone that we interacted with was awesome. So again, thank you, judges. Jumping into the decks, I'm going to start with my Dimir deck because it's the one that I'm just most comfortable with. And I think this one was heads and tails above the other two that we ended up with. I felt fairly good about this Dimir deck because it has these two amazing rares. I have an amazing amount of removal. I would say that there's an issue with lack of solid early creatures. We didn't have any options for early surveilling creatures, and our win conditions kind of struggled, but we'll get into the cons of it a bit more. Either way, I was just happy to see this come from 12 packs. Our Boros deck, which Tyler played, he had a decent curve. His win conditions were standard Boros play, get a good curve out, and hopefully try and win before your opponent can stabilize. His impactful rares were Tajik, and yeah, we were just struggling here over it. We clearly needed some other stuff, but we'll touch on that after. And then jumping into our third deck was the Selesnya deck, and this one we felt pretty decent about. It also has a decent curve and the win condition of playing big creatures like Siege Worm. We can convoke out 1 billion tokens with March of the Multitudes, or just having a bigger board than the opponent. Pretty cut and dry for Selesnya. And when you're building your decks, you want to kind of try and give yourself some confidence, right? Like, no, this is going to work, these are good cards, this is going to help us win. You don't really want to just start thinking about, why don't I have these cards? But let's get into the cards that I was wishing we did have. For Dimir, yes, we had a stupid amount of removal and a couple ridiculous rares, but the lack of low-cost creatures usually led me having to use high-cost removal for low-cost creatures. That's rarely a good situation to be in. Having no Watchers in the Mist, for example, no Dimir Spybugs, no Dimir Informants, no Passball Adepts, Hired Poisoners, I didn't have any Notion Rains. There were just a lot of cards that I feel would have smoothed things out. Moving on to the Boros deck, you need a strong curve, and one card that I was personally really upset to not get any of was Healer's Hawk. It's just such a strong card. And then you have Rock Chargers, we didn't have any of those. We did have one Skyknight Legionnaire, but we had no Lava Coils, nothing like Justice Strike. We were just lacking in low-cost tricks removal. I would say those higher quality 1 and 2 drops. We were fortunate to have a lot of Hammer Droppers. We had 4 Hammer Droppers too, I think. Like, that was... yeah, it was just kind of ugly. And then our Selesnya deck had the win condition of big bodies as well. But again, no Healer's Hawks was rough. We only had 1 Hunted Witness for our pool. We had 1 Luminous Bonds, and that was it. We had 1 Prey Upon for the pool. We had no Conclave Tribunals, no Crushing Canopies, or Guild Mages, or Let of Champions. Just, yeah, we felt confident leaving the table with our decks to go play our first match, but oh boy, were we in for a surprise. Our third lesson we learned was get a great card pool or be really lucky, because that will help you win and get to day 2. We did not meet either of those prerequisites, as it were, but I also won't say that we played perfectly or that none of us made mistakes. So at the end of the day, there were some funny mistakes. Let's say we probably laughed the most out of any team there, at least for the first few rounds. We were having a good time regardless. I would be curious what your thoughts were on our deck, so definitely let me know in the comments what you liked about our deck, if you agree with the assessment that I had, and overall, just if you would have felt good with this card pool. Match 1, I run into a Dimir mirror match, and I'm thinking, dude, I got Laziv, I got Thief of Sanity, I got great removal, let's do this. My opponent's first play is a foil Laziv, so that right there just tells you how it went for me. He was able to match all my removal, he matched every counterspell I had. The games would get grindy and they'd get into top deck mode, but then he would have Notion Rains and he'd have higher creature quality like Watchers in the Mist and the Guild Mage to really help make sure that he's drawing the cards he needs. And when we got into that top deck mode, the game could have gone either way depending on draws, but he just had better setups for draws and he played really well. He was a really solid player, so they were intense games. I didn't have any misplays that I think I made. You know, it was just intense and, you know, fun games of Magic. Next to me, though, the fiance ran into a David and Goliath situation. She was playing Selesnya against the best Boros deck I have ever seen thus far in Guilds of Ravnica. Mind you, that Dimir deck was fairly stacked that I was playing against, so I was thinking, maybe their Dimir deck was a little bit better than ours, but the other 2 guilds would even it out so that hopefully we could still pull out a win. No. I looked over and I saw a Goblin War Boss, which was very unfortunate to see. He had multiple Healer's Hawks, multiple Skyknight Legionnaires, multiple Rock Chargers, multiple Luminous Bonds, multiple of the flying 5/5 Angel. It was cool to see a deck work that well in a limited setting, but it was kind of unfortunate to see the fiance get her first intro to GP Magic just being this steamroll of a Boros deck that I was amazed that they had every card I was dreaming we would get, and then multiples of it. It was like, wow. And then Tyler next to me playing with his Boros deck against Golgari. He had decent curve outs, but he kept running into hired poisoners and dead weights, and then the guy just had undergrowth, big creatures to just swing for the win, and was able to play stuff like Undercity Uprising and whatever he needed to take care of whatever creatures Tyler was trying to throw down. So all in all, yeah, we got pretty steamrolled that first round. And I did run into this team after and asked them how they were doing, and every time I ran into them, they're like, yep, we're X&O, X&O, X&O. So I'm assuming they made day 2. I hope they did, because with that card pool, I think they definitely had the chance to. They were all really cool dudes, which was pretty nice. But whatever small amount of wind we did have in our sails got steamrolled out after that first match. Match 2, though, we're playing a group from Louisiana. These 3 guys who were all really cool. I think they seemed like they were family, like a dad and 2 sons kind of situation. They were really cool. Going in, you know, everyone's at a more even level. I played against a Golgari deck in the first match, and I ended up winning 2-0. There was a lot of really tight races, but I ended up winning because of my least favorite card in the set, which is Nightveil Predator. It's definitely not my favorite way to win, but I think Dimir just does well against Golgari in general because they're relying on those few big bodies towards the end, generally. So your removal spells definitely get you a lot of value in that way. That was pretty much just all I needed, was to make sure I could take care of the Crawl Harpooners and then just keep swinging for the win in the air. The games were really tight though, because he had 2 copies of Beast Whisperer, which is just a phenomenal card, and overall was what made his deck a really hard battle, because I had to keep making sure that I could take out those creatures, but then also have an answer for the big thing in his hand that I could tell he was trying to ramp into. To my right, Tyler was playing in a Boros Mirror matchup, and I think this is where his sleeping accommodations probably hit the hardest. To sum up his match, he played a Direct Current on a creature with 3 toughness. He just looked at his opponent looked at him, he looked over at us, and was just like, I don't know what I just did. I'm not even going to try and take it back. I just, yeah, so that's game 1. and we all laughed it off, like it wasn't a big deal. And then the second game he actually won because he swung with Garrison Sergeant when it had double strike because he has a gate, and then his opponent said no blocks. He played Sure Strike on it, did 12 damage, and then he ended up winning the game with exactly lethal on that attack. So it was a pretty cool game that he was able to bounce back from. Unfortunately, the third game he had a good starting hand, and then he found out why playing an opponent with multiple Luminous Bonds and you drawing land is not a good combo. So we had 1 win, 1 loss, and that means it came down to the fiance and her playing against an Izzet deck. So Selesnya versus Izzet, and the first game was just a huge grind fest. I kept looking over, trying to help wherever I could, but it was just a back and forth, removal, attack, build the board out, removal, attack, build the board out. And he played a Murmuring Mystic and just had a lot of jumpstart spells in the graveyard. She did find 1 of her 2 removal spells, I think, for it, but he ended up being able to create still like 6 or 7 birds, and after a few turns was able to just attack through whatever defender she did have. Going into the second game, there was less than 10 minutes left on the clock, and in this matchup, there probably wasn't going to be a result of a definitive win or loss unless the fiance just really had a terrible draw or something like that. She didn't. She ended up playing a pretty ideal game. She got Beast Whisperer down. She's able to keep convoking out huge creatures. He was able to remove some of them, but at the end of the day, after she played March of the Multitudes, had I think 6 or 7 tokens down. He kept fighting. Like, he was just like, I have to win this game because there's no way I'm winning a game 3. I was really proud of her because she won on the last turn into overtime. You know, when you got 5 turns left, she won with an attack on the last turn. It was just really cool to see, like, everyone at that table finally got their first win. Maybe not their first match win, but we all got at least a win at the table. It ended as a draw, so when it came to making day 2, it was still considered basically a loss, but we didn't lose. We didn't win, but we didn't lose. But at this point, we're kind of like 4 hours into the day already, and we're thinking, if we lose again, do we want to keep playing in the main event, or do we want to drop and go to side events, because there's no chance of us making day 2. Regardless of what we decided to do, though, we really wanted to get that team win. So going into match 3, I was just like laser focused, let's do this. And the first game, I got mana screwed like I've never been mana screwed before, which was just, it was a bummer. My hand was awesome. I was on the draw. I had both colors in my hand. Only 2 lands. It was a little greedy, but I had Jumpstart in my hand. I had Dead Weight, and I had 2 other removal spells and something else. But overall, I was like, okay, I'm clearly going to be able to get my 3rd land. I've got a Surveil option. I'm going to be okay. I was feeling good about it. If I just get to my 4th land, I'm going to be able to have access to everything in my hand, and I'm going to be A-okay. And I did not see my 4th land until my 12th card into the deck. So I was able to hold them off for 9 turns because I just I had all the cards I needed. I couldn't play anything more than one spell, and I couldn't play my best removal because I only ever had 3 mana the entire game. So yeah, I will say the fiance won the first game, and she looked over at me with a huge smile, and that was probably one of my favorite moments of the tournament, was just watching her win her first game. Didn't ask for my help at all throughout it, just played really well, won her first game. That was awesome. On the other side, Tyler was having a good time finding out what it's like to have an opponent that has 3 copies of Luminous Bonds and plays them all right in a row and locks down all your creatures and then just flies over the top with his mentored Healer's Hawks and Skyknight Legionnaires. Man, Healer's Hawk I'm a huge fan of it, I'm just not a huge fan of playing against it. In the second game, I had the opposite problem where I ran into Mana Flood. I kept being able to answer his threats, but he just kept having them, and he got into top deck mode, and he kept drawing his big bodies, and it got to the point where he had his Guild Mage, he had the Vigospore Worm, the 6/4, and he had I think it's the 6/6 that costs 1 less for every creature in your graveyard that lets you put a land back into play, whatever the Hulk card is. So he had like 3 threats on the board. I could only address 1 at a time, and I just got to the point where I lost because he was able to give his creatures menace, or I got rid of the mage and he would just overrun me. It was just, yeah, it was again really frustrating. I didn't feel at all like my deck wasn't able to beat that deck. I just had unfortunate draws. It happens. Can't really get too upset about it. It was just a bummer to end the event on that note. The fiance's luck went downhill as well for her game 2. I'm looking over, they're in an even board state. They're both into top deck mode, and she draws land, he draws Nightveil Predator. Okay, no big deal. Selesnya can outrace that card. Let's see what happens. She draws land, he draws Quasi-Duplicate, and it's just like, what is happening? Next turn, she draws land, and he draws land too, but he can just discard it to Jumpstart to Quasi-Duplicate. He's got 3 Nightveil Predators on the board. Thanks for playing. On to game 3. Tyler has another amazing starting hand. He runs into turn 3 Luminous Bonds, turn 4 Luminous Bonds, turn 5 swing with 2 Healer's Hawks that are mentored. It's just, yeah, it was like textbook Boros, but it was not our Boros doing it. Game 3 for the fiance though, we're rubbing our hands together just hoping. Let's see if she can get her first match win. She has a pretty decent starting hand on the play. She's got 4 land. She had, I think it was Pet Collector into a 2-drop into 3-drop, so it was like a pretty solid hand. So she starts off playing her hand as expected, 1-drop into 2-drop into 3-drop, but the whole time she's playing, she's drawing nothing but lands again, and I can just tell she's getting deflated. I'm even more deflated for her. He goes turn 1 Phantasm, turn 2 Passwall Adept, turn 3 Dimir Informant, turn 4 Nightveil Predator, turn 5 Quasi-Duplicate, turn 6 Quasi-Duplicate, and again was just overrun by Nightveil Predators. So it was an unfortunate, basically ended up being another steamroll for us. We felt a little deflated that that's how it ended, that we all kind of felt that we didn't play our cards to their best potential. We just didn't feel great about it. So we left, we got some fresh air, just walked around, and then got ready for a side event. To review the main event just real quick, I think from an organization standpoint, Channel Fireball did amazing. The judges were, again, phenomenal. There were so many people crammed in this small space, and I think in a way, like, that's what you want Magic to be, right? It's just people that are cramming together to play this awesome game and have an awesome time. I can't imagine from a logistics planning standpoint that it was an easy feat. And with all that chaos going on, every interaction we had with them was great. They were all super friendly, helpful, approachable. Just, I would give you 4 thumbs up if I had 2 extra arms. Now, if I had to rank our card pool, looking back, looking at the decks that we ran into, I would give it like a C, maybe a C+. It just, yeah, again, I'm interested in what you think of it, looking at the decks that we had. I guess you have to take my word for it that our Izzet cards just were nothing special. And our Golgari, there were some decent Golgari cards, but we didn't feel like the splash was going to be easy. We didn't have any Guild Gates to run with it, or maybe we did have one. But we were just really struggling for high card quality across the 3 decks, and that was, looking back on it, again, I think we were trying to pump ourselves up, but I think the card pool, if we would have made day 2 with that card pool, I would have felt like we really either lucked out or accomplished something that I don't think the average Joe would have expected. I will also say that we didn't do any favors for ourselves. I don't think we put ourselves even in the position to overperform the card quality that we had, and I wouldn't blame our performance entirely on the cards by any means. We all made mistakes. I definitely didn't play flawlessly, but that's just part of the adventure and part of what makes you a better player and grow into being that better player. Win or lose, we had a great time. I really wish we could say that we did win some at some point, but like Vin Diesel said,
ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
Or in our case, losing, or like missing day 2. You know, you miss it by an inch or a mile, it doesn't matter. You missed it. From a price perspective of $80 a player, if I have to think we paid $240 as a team to play, that isn't, yeah, it felt steep. To not get a playmat, you get the cards, cool, you get promos, cool, you get some deck boxes, cool. And the sleeves were nice. Like, I was really happy to see those sleeves. That's something I'm definitely going to be looking forward to using in the future. I just think a playmat would have made it all feel way better. It would have been great to have that memento, that memorable playmat from your GP. I'm really bummed that they got rid of those. And we couldn't really justify spending another $40 to get all 3 of them, or $15 to get the specific one that we wanted. So from a pure value standpoint, I think it definitely left something to be desired, but this is a GP, it's not a pre-release. It definitely was not meant to be a value-packed event when it came to the actual contents or materials that you get. It's a serious competitive event, you're playing for serious money, and money ain't cheap. I could also see people getting really upset in the team limited events when you open up your card pool and you feel like there is absolutely no way you're making day 2 with that, and the event's pretty much already over before it even starts. So, you know, but that's part of the risk. That's part of the experience, right? So I can't exactly fault the format. That's just part of it. A GP isn't just like a higher level tournament. It is the highest level tournament, and it's going to be for the highest stakes. It's going to have the highest risks. But at the end of the day, for us, it was a great experience. I think it's something that we would like to maybe think of doing once a year. Of course, when they're 8+ hours away for us, no matter what, that's also not making it any easier. After the main event, though, we did go and do a Guilds of Ravnica draft. It was pretty casual. You just went up, you paid. Once your pod was filled, you went and sat down at a table. They gave you the packs. You drafted in a pretty casual manner, and then they gave you your first round pairings. And then once the tournament was done, you would go and report to the table that you signed up at, and they would give you your prizes. What we didn't know is that it was single elimination, and that was definitely a bit of a downer. That may have just been us being complete novices to the whole GP thing, and that's the standard. But it seemed like most people at the table were surprised by that and kind of disappointed, because we all knew. We just wanted to sit down and play a few games of draft, but you had to pay $20 a game if you lost. So that was, yeah, not ideal. I ended up drafting Boros, and I was super happy with my deck. I ended up getting a lot of gifts late into packs, which was pretty great to see. Made me feel confident that I was in the right colors. I won my first round playing Boros against an Izzet deck. The fiance played... She drafted Izzet, which I was actually really impressed that she drafted Izzet, and her deck was pretty great. She played really well. She had a lot of mana problems. She just could not draw blue, even though she had 8 islands in her deck. For whatever reason, they didn't want to come out. But I was just, again, I was really impressed to see her draft a blue-red deck, and her only experience even seeing Izzet was the one game that she played against it in the main event. So to me, that was just a really... I don't know, it was a really cool thing that I kind of like smirked at when I saw that she had drafted it. And then Tyler drafted Golgari, and he had a really solid deck too, but he ran into the person who ended up winning the draft. And the person that he played against, she had Ral, she was the only person in Dimir at the table, which was crazy. But her deck was just phenomenal. She seemed like a super cool lady and was a very strong Magic player, no doubt. Her deck just crushed everybody. So it was pretty cool to see how well some people did and what strategies people took, and just chatting with everyone. Everyone in our draft pod was super cool, super friendly, nice to talk to. So that made the side event, again, pretty enjoyable, even though it was single elimination. The second round, I played against a Boros matchup, and I mean, I'm a little salty still about it. Like, my deck was, I think, great. I had Tajik every game, which was amazing to play third turn every game, but I could not draw anything else in that second match. It was frustrating. I had 2 Skynet Legionnaires, I had a couple removal spells, I had something else, and like I saw none of them either game. I just played my first creature, my second creature, and then ran out of gas. My opponent, like, she had a pretty strong Boros deck too. She had great curve outs, she had her combat tricks. Like, she just did really well. So I can't take anything away from her. I was just upset that my deck didn't really work to the level that it definitely had the potential to. And with my one win, I got some prize tickets, and with them I got these sweet sleeves. The untap, upkeep, draw, misplay, scoop, cry. I'm gonna be sporting these at the next pre-release, 100%. I felt bad for the one dude I played in the first round, because he flew all the way from Seattle to play in the main event, and when they got there on Friday, his buddy from the East Coast, him and his buddy from Seattle who flew down, they were not allowed to sign up for the main event because they said they were already so overbooked, signed up for it, that they just couldn't accept any other teams, which I felt really bad for the dude. And speaking of the social aspect, I was surprised that I didn't fanboy more over seeing all these people that I've seen on YouTube and in the Magic professional VODs and whatnot, seeing the pros, seeing people like Marshall, who's my favorite limited content creator, like, that was awesome to just see all these people casually chatting with fans, playing Magic, doing their thing. Seeing the pros in their huddles, chatting strategy and whatever, makes you think, man, I would just really like to sit down and play Magic with these people. But on the same hand, they're kind of at work. They need to do really well and be focused and eyes on the prize. And it's not easy to be doing that when you travel and you're in this competitive environment. But I do have to give a huge shout out to Brian Branduin. He was walking around, he was chatting with another pro, and I had a question about something that happened in the first match with one of my teammates, and I couldn't find a judge because they were just busy running around, people's hands were flying up, and he's just chatting there with another pro, and I walk up, and he was like just super friendly, super welcoming. Like he was the kind of person that when you first meet, you're like, this is a good dude. So yeah, BBD, my favorite pro. I hope you continue to do well on the pro circuit. Best of luck to you, man. Moving on. After the draft, we checked out some artist booths. We checked out all the sales, like the vendors that just had these tables with these huge cases of amazing looking foil Magic cards and cards that were worth more than every Magic card I own. It was just, wow. Chatted with some of the artists who were all just really cool dudes. It was great. If anyone we're looking to get a playmat made for the fiance, and she wants like a stoic looking female figure riding a dragon or a dinosaur, or a dragon with like a dinosaur kind of like triceratops head dress thing. There was one picture that we had that an artist had on a banner, but he didn't have on a playmat, so I was bummed. I was totally expecting, yeah, we will find literally anything you could imagine, but at least now I have a gift idea for Christmas time. So pros and cons, right? And now to kind of wrap this up, looking back, we didn't do so well in the Team Limited event, but again, I would be happy to do one of those GP events every year, just to do it, just to have that experience, get some more, high stakes, high competition type under my belt. I think it was really worth it. I think all three of us learned a lot. I think we all gained a better appreciation for the game. The fiance is now wanting to play Magic more than we've ever played before. She wants to get better. She kind of had her eyes open, I think, to, like, I don't know, when you play a game in a more serious manner, for some people I think it really gets them into it and like, oh, I now see why it's worth working on this skill set, while other people are like, I'm just never going to approach that level or be motivated to reach a higher level of play. For me, that made the whole trip worth it, just seeing her want to play more Magic and get better and be excited to play in a pre-release. And she may even want to do like a solo pre-release, so we'll play our two-headed giant and then we'll do our own thing for like a solo pre-release. That would be pretty cool. But that's it for my GP recap. I hope you enjoyed the video. I really do appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Again, let me know what you think our decks look like. Do you think they were average, below, above average? Either way, I really appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.